2024, Kate and I were presented the opportunity to join many of her college friends in Paris to support her friend Emily as she and her team would compete for a medal at the Paralympic Games. Of course, we jumped at it, and with the right timing, were able to join my parents as well for a week in Northern Ireland and Dublin. Europe is an incredible place, with the remnants of history blended with the modern world. While we both had been to France as recently as 2021, neither of us had seen any of Ireland or Northern Ireland. From the northern coast to the center of Dublin, we were excited to explore its history, from medieval castles and ruins to the more recent times known as the Troubles between the Loyalists and the Republicans. Our trip begins here, in Northern Ireland. Upon landing in Dublin, we met up with my parents and picked up our rental car, headed to the capital of Northern Ireland, Belfast. Northern Ireland is a part of the United Kingdom, so as we crossed the border from Ireland, kilometers per hour became miles per hour, and the euro was left behind for the pound sterling. Upon arriving in Belfast, we walked around the city center, hit some iconic pubs, and had a fantastic dinner at the Meat Locker. The next day, it was off to the Titanic Museum, as Belfast was where the iconic ship had been constructed. It's even more impressive seeing the methods used in the early 1900s to build such a ship, and what was learned from its unfortunate fate. We explored more of the city and hit up some more pubs for pints of Guinness. While exploring, we passed Queen's University and checked out the local botanic gardens before meeting up with my parents at Bert's Jazz Bar for dinner. To end the night, we went to Kelly's Cellars, established in 1720. The Guinness was on point. From Belfast, we would spend the day driving the coastline of Northern Ireland, stopping at a small castle and a local waterfall, as well as finding some time to fly the drone. Continuing to drive the narrow, hedge-lined roads, we made stops at multiple viewpoints. We eventually reached the Dark Hedges, a wooded road from Game of Thrones. It was cool, but we were unfortunately overwhelmed by the nasty smell of manure being spread across the surrounding fields. Now back on the coast, we had a scenic hike on the way to the Carrick-a-Rede rope bridge. The original bridge was built in 1755, but the one today is less than 20 years old. The area was once known as a great fishing spot for Atlantic salmon. Next, it was off to the infamous Giant's Causeway. Like Yosemite, the Grand Tetons, and Meteora in Greece, this is one of the most incredible geological formations I have ever seen. Whether you believe the ancient tale of a giant or the scientific explanation of a volcanic history, it's a true phenomena. That night, we would arrive in Bushmills, a city with a population of just over 1,000 people. Here, we stopped at the world's oldest licensed whiskey distillery, the Old Bushmills Distillery, where they were granted the license to distill in 1608. The next day, we visited Dunluce Castle, which is beautifully situated on the coast. The castle has a lot of history spanning from the 13th to 16th centuries, and it also came with stunning views. From there, we made sure to stop by the Royal Portrush Golf Club, home of the 2025 Open Championship, one of golf's 4 major tournaments. We had a great lunch on the beach nearby at Harry's Shack, and then walked around the grounds of the Downhill Estate. The scenes were simply breathtaking. From there, we were off to Londonderry, or Derry, depending whether you're a Loyalist or Republican in Northern Ireland. Derry had a lovely walled city centre, with lots of history from the Troubles, and of course some nods to the popular show, Derry Girls. We also found Tracy's bar, where of course, we had to stop for a pint of Guinness. The next day we would head to Enniskillen, where we stayed at a lovely bed and breakfast hosted by John and Jackie. There, we went on a hike known as the Stairway to Heaven, which included 450 wooden steps leading up over 1,600 feet of elevation. Unfortunately, it was a foggy day, but every once in a while we got a clear view of what we were accomplishing.
Stay away whenever I try. There's so many things that I keep in my mind. My friends keep me out and it hurts every time. With all the emotions I built up inside, oh why can't I?
That night was relaxing and quiet at the B&B, with no cell reception and nothing but farmhouses spread around us. It was finally golf day, as on our way to Dublin we stopped at Luttrellstown Castle Golf Course. We weren't going to make the trip to this country without getting a round of golf in. Shout out Sean Way. In Dublin, there were more pubs to see on our list as we explored the Temple District. The next day, we walked through St. Stephen's Green Park, hit my favorite Guinness spot as recommended by the Guinnessers, O'Donoghue's, and headed off to what I had been prepping the last few months for, our trip to St. James Gate or the Guinness Storehouse. Here, we learned about Guinness's history, brand, and brewing process, and had both a pint of Guinness with our faces on it, and another with an incredible view. The Gravity Bar at the Storehouse is the highest spot in Dublin, and included a 360-degree view of the city. We truly loved our time in Northern Ireland and Dublin, as it wasn't just the beauty, but the people that made it great. Here, we said goodbye to my parents, as for Kate and I, it was off to France. After dropping our bags off at the hotel, we went off to walk around the city. We were staying in the same part of the city as we had in 2021, so we were already familiar with how to get around. That evening, we passed by the Louvre and stopped to see the Cauldron, which carried the Olympic flame for the Paris 2024 Games. There were a lot of people out relaxing in the park for 10 o'clock at night. The next day would be a detour from our Paris plans as we headed to Gare du Nord, the busiest train station in Europe. Here, we took a train for a day trip to Brussels, Belgium. After stopping to get a Belgian waffle, we explored the city center, checking out the incredible architecture of the Grand Place. We also checked out the Royal Gallery of St. Hubert, Parc de Brussels, and the Royal Palace of Brussels, where the Belgian king lives and works. We also made a fun stop at the Museum of Illusions and a lambic brewery where they relied on the historical methods of brewing with natural fermentation rather than yeast fermentation. From here, we were back to Paris. The next day would be the semi-final match of wheelchair basketball at the Paralympic Games. We headed to sold-out Bercy Arena, meeting up with a massive cheer squad of friends that had made it to Paris. Here, we would cheer on Emily and her teammates as they took on China, with a chance for a guaranteed medal on the line. It was an exciting back-and-forth game, stressing us out, with Team USA coming out on top, securing their spot in the gold medal game. That night, we met up with my friends Thomas and Akshay to attend the France vs. Italy soccer match at Parc de France. We were lucky to get to see the starting squads play, with the likes of Kylian Mbappe, Antoine Griezmann, and Ousmane Dembele. They didn't prove victorious, but the atmosphere was amped to 11. Especially when France scored just 13 seconds into the match. The next morning, we would make sure to see some familiar sights, such as the Eiffel Tower, now wearing the Olympic rings, and l'Arc de Triomphe, with the Paralympic logo represented. We also went on a river cruise that night, where we got to see the iconic tower shine and shimmer in all its glory. The end of our trip came with the gold medal match against the Netherlands. While Team USA came up short, we were so proud and pumped for the team and their Olympic run, and got to see them presented with their silver medals. One last evening out with Thomas and Akshay to watch some opening weekend NFL football, and that would be a wrap on our trip. We truly enjoyed all the places we visited, the people we got to see and meet, and the atmosphere of being in Paris during the Olympic season. Another incredible trip that we won't soon forget. Only one question remains: where to next?